how are you all? I hope you're doing well. Happy Friday. So we're going to talk about this new poll by Rasmussen and the National Police Association, and then go into a story out of Philadelphia that I thought was a joke when I first read it, of a new directive towards their police officers and how they're handling low-level crime. It is in fact not a joke. It is real. So we're going to get into that, and I'm probably going to do a big jump from one story to the next because the contrast is just too good. I can't let that go. Anyway, this poll. So before we get started with that, I am consistent across the board. I don't like any type of rioting, violent behavior, people getting attacked, destruction of property, people breaking into areas where they're not supposed to break into, because I want a civil and just society. I am pro law enforcement enforcing especially violent crime. So I don't care what side of the political spectrum it is on. I am not for any type of violence or rioting and any type of protest. What happened on the Capitol, I, like a lot of people, was really shocked and appalled by a lot of the things that I saw. But I will say that there are still questions about it that haven't been answered yet that I would like to have answered. That being said, I am all for Congress investigating the January 6th Capitol riot, whatever you want to call it. I am all for that investigation. I have a lot of questions that haven't been answered. Why are there 14,000 hours of footage that no one has seen? Did some of the officers have body cams? Did they not? Why did Nancy Pelosi turn down extra security and extra police around the Capitol building? Why did that happen? What happened to Ashley? Who were the people that were at the very front knocking down the barriers and breaking into the building? Why were some police officers taking selfies with people and ushering them in? I have a lot of questions. Will they get answered? I don't know if they will with the current committee that we have. But anyway, this Rasmussen poll says that 2/3 of voters want Congress to investigate 2020 riots as well. And it says, now that the House Democrats have created a committee to investigate the January 6th Capitol riot, most voters believe Congress should also investigate the BLM protests that sparked violence across major cities last year. A new national television, why do I keep saying that? Every time I read that, I say television. Telephone. Do people still have telephones? A new national telephone and online survey by the National Police Association and Rasmussen reports finds that 66% of likely U.S. voters think Congress should investigate last year's violent protests, in which more than 2,000 police officers suffered injury on the line of duty. Not only 2,000 police officers, there was up to $1 billion in property damage. 150 federal buildings were under attack. Up to 24 people lost their lives. And another question that I have about that is, why was Kamala Harris promoting a bail fund to bail out violent rioters? Why were a lot of our politicians excusing and justifying this behavior and not calling it out for what it actually was? And I can even argue that this turned into, and this is just my opinion being a resident in West Hollywood while this was happening. I got stuck in the middle of our riots there by accident. And that was, I think it was May 29th or May 30th of 2020. Not only that, I went the next day to help clean up some of the destruction. So I saw it firsthand. And a lot of my politicians were praising the protests that were happening in the street, which is fine, but they were really downplaying a lot of the destruction that happened, and were almost blaming a lot of the destruction on the police and the police that were agitating the crowd and the people. So they were sort of kind of coddling some of the protesters and blaming a lot of this on the police officers. So there was that. And of course, there were opportunists that had nothing to do with the protest that just came and took advantage of the fact that police were overwhelmed and went and stole a bunch of things. But this is what happened. Again, this was justified by a lot of our leaders all summer. And I think that it's fair to say that this led to a spike in crime. Like, for instance, look at this story out of San Francisco where they talk about this increase in shoplifting, and it appears to be like career shoplifters that are going around stealing a bunch of stuff because they know that they're going to get away with it. And here you have the DA in San Francisco. Here, let me pull it up. I don't know if you remember that viral video that came out from San Francisco, and it was, I'll show the still right here, but it was a guy driving into San Francisco, or driving into San Francisco, riding his bicycle into a San Francisco Walgreens, filling up trash bags full of items that he just took off the shelves right in front of a security guard, right in front of other people, and then just rides his bicycle out, totally brazen. Well, we're seeing an increase in these type of crimes, and I connect that to the riots. That's what I observed in our riots, are all of these people that came and took advantage of the fact that police were overwhelmed. They were driving up to businesses, people were jumping out of cars, they were going and taking a bunch of stuff and then getting back and driving off. During the riots, I think what happened was a lot of people realized how easy it actually was to do that. And since then, we have had in Los Angeles an uptick in those type of crimes. People just driving up or ambushing a store, whether it's in Beverly Hills and broad daylight, areas around Santa Monica or West Hollywood. People are just running in, taking what they want, groups of people, and then just running right back out. We've also had a trend of people driving up to innocent people walking on the street, whether they see the person has a nice piece of jewelry, a nice watch, a purse, whatever. They drive up, get out of the car, rob the person, get back in, and drive off. So we're seeing a big increase in stuff like that, but it doesn't help when you have DAs like this one. So back to what happened at Walgreens. So you had this guy go in, he left. Well, that went viral, and finally the DA has come out and said something about this. And this is Chesa Boudin. He is one of the super progressive DAs that we have sprinkled all over the U.S. right now. He also has a recall against him, just like George Gascon in L.A. So this is what he had to say about the shoplifter. And he told this to the New Yorker. And he said, "When I watch that video, I think about 5 questions that people are not asking that I think they should. Is he drug addicted, mentally ill, desperate? Is he a part of a major retail fencing operation? What's driving this behavior? And is it in any way representative because it was presented as something symptomatic?" He continued, "If Walgreens has insurance for certain goods or they expect a certain amount of loss, if they would rather not risk lawsuits or escalation to violence, then maybe that's something we should know about." So he is blaming Walgreens, the police, and the security officer for not doing anything. Well, we've seen this happen time and time again, that they put their safety on line, they get attacked, or like he said, they possibly get a lawsuit, and that perpetrator is arrested, and because of these DAs, he's just let back out 2 hours later. So why would you put yourself on the line for that? I can kind of understand. Not to mention in San Francisco, so this happened out of Walgreens, right? San Francisco had 17 Walgreens pull out because of the rampant shoplifting. They couldn't afford to keep having their stores there. It's not a smart business idea to have your stores in a place where it's just going to get robbed and robbed and robbed. Not only that, Target is now closing a lot of stores at 6 p.m. in the San Francisco area because of this rampant theft that keeps happening in their areas. So you have these lawmakers and DAs that don't prosecute, and then what happens is businesses start to pull out because why would you stay there? You can't sustain having your place robbed over and over and over again. And you see what Chesa Boudin is doing, their DA. He's saying, well, maybe we should be more considerate of the criminal, and maybe we should ask ourselves a lot of questions. Okay, Chesa Boudin, okay. But back to this article on Rasmussen, I want to read you this statement from a member of the National Police Association. So, and this is back to what happened in 2020 with the riots. And this person says, when the mayors of cities in which violent riots took place in 2020 refused to let police immediately stop the crimes taking place, it sent a message to violent criminals across the nation that crimes will be allowed and criminals won't be touched. For the last year, violent crimes have increased nationally, and lack of support from politicians has resulted in the number of police officers declining into a short staffing, recruitment, and retention crisis. So in a lot of these cities, you also have police that are taking early retirement or just quitting because they don't have the support of everyone. A lot of these riots could have been taken care of pretty easily, especially with Antifa running around. It could have been taken care of, but police had their hands tied. They were told to stand down and to let this continue night after night after night, and criminals just get bolder and bolder and bolder. And when they would arrest people, they were released almost before the paperwork could even be finished. And they were just out the next night or the next day doing the same thing again. Okay, so that's happening in the world. Meanwhile, in Philly police now required to first politely ask criminals to please stop doing certain crimes. That's not a joke. It says, Philadelphia police are now required to politely ask criminals to stop engaging in certain crimes, such as defecating in the street, before officers can actually take action, according to an internal memo from the department obtained by Fox 25 reporter Steve Keeley. It says, the city's statistical expert has reviewed the department's stops to identify any racial disparity. For years, our experts could not conclusively determine that racial disparity existed in our stops. They have since said racial disparity does exist in certain stops. So that is what is behind this. So they look at their numbers and they see, wow, there is a racial disparity among certain crimes. So instead of figuring out why there is a racial disparity, I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening. So these are the crimes that they're going to have to ask if you would please stop before they can do anything. Sounds from residential properties, sounds created on public right-of-way, spitting, alcohol beverages, open containers, public urination or defecation, aggressive conduct on sidewalk, panhandling, gambling, disorderly conduct, obstructing the highway or other passageway, defiant trespass, litter in public places, litter in parks, smoking marijuana in public places, sound production devices, loud music from cars, prostitution. So they must first engage only in a mere encounter with the individual. So they have to ask the person to stop. And if the person stops, they can leave and walk away. But if they don't stop, then the police officer can move forward per usual. Distracted again. But I'll tell you exactly what this is. This has nothing to do with the betterment of safety. This has nothing to do with the betterment of the community. Absolutely nothing to do with that. This has to do with them trying to fix their numbers. It's not on paper. It didn't happen. Ma'am, can you please stop prostituting? Just stop. Okay. And then she'll walk around the corner and just go do it somewhere else. That's all. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about everything. I'll see you later. Bye.